Start building up my meter here. We're gonna take out Roper, and then Williams has the grenade. Fuck your grenade. The grenade can bounce. There it is. Okay, depending on what direction the grenade, like the explosive side is facing, is where the bomb will go. There we go. I know Roper's sitting there with a knife. Ah, I was hoping I could back out of the way of that one, you motherfucker. That did so much damage. Eat shit. Oh, like that. Williams is getting angry. I can't let him hit me. Got him. I keep hitting the wrong button. Nope. Ah, block that. There we go. Much better. Much, much better. I wish I didn't catch that knife in the back, but much better play here. Alright, let's go build up my meter here. This kind of reminds me of the angry meter in Brawl Busters or Brawl Brothers and Peacekeepers. It's the rushing beat 'em ups that do this. I kind of dig it. I also dig those games. I like those games a lot. I love how I built up my anger meter and I just went and used a weapon. In Super Double Dragon, those boomerangs can be caught. Excuse me, in return. You cannot catch those in Super. So if you throw them and it comes back to you, it'll just hit you. In return, you can catch them, but you can't do it here. I want that weapon. Give me that weapon, Williams. There we go. Alright, I'm doing this much better so far. Fucking Jeff! So, if you're wondering why does Jeff look just like Billy and Jimmy, because it is the same sprite but colored green. That's always been a thing with Double Dragon, that when Jeff shows up, it's just the brothers. Oh, I'm so mad that he threw a knife in my back. I'm mad that all the damage I got for the most part was just someone throwing a knife in my back. Jeez. So this, the broken glass, but you can't throw anyone through it, I believe that is in return, but is not in the American version here. So it's just like oh yeah, no, that's just where the bad guys come in, but you can't knock them out. I want to say in return you can, but I can't remember. Yeah, block that. There you go. He's angry. Get out of here. Oh, that felt good. Get out of here, Williams. There we go. Oh, nope. Weapons do not move from screen to screen, which is kind of always a console Double Dragon thing. Another interesting thing about Super is that there was no version in the arcades. Double Dragon 1, 2, and 3 all had arcade counterparts, but this one does not. This one went straight to console, and like I said, it's the last one that Technos made. And get out of here. There we go. So, talking really quickly and going by the title here, how are there two Double Dragon 4s? Fuck your knife. Get out of here. So, this is Super Double Dragon. Technically, it is not Double Dragon 4 in name, but due to what happened with other Double Dragon games after, this one's looked at as a Double Dragon 4. So, with this game being the last one Technos worked on, Tradewest, who had the licensing to Double Dragon, decided absolutely we're marketing this. Anyone's getting the name the Double Dragon if they, have something to do with it and, can help make us some money. That's how we got stuff like the Double Dragon movie, the cartoon, and a bunch of other spin-offs like Battletoads Double Dragon, which I don't like. God, I don't like that fucking game. I don't like Battletoads, so that's I'm coming at that game already on shaky ground, but I don't like that game. But it's stuff like that is why we have these different versions of Double Dragon. So one of the games that came out through that Trade West kind of giving the Double Dragon name to anybody was the Double Dragon fighting game that was based on Double Dragon the cartoon. So there's Double Dragon fighting game called Double Dragon Shadows Fall, or The Shadows Fall, something like that. And it is, again, a fighting game based on the cartoon, yet is called Double Dragon 5. That always broke my brain to see that, like, this is definitely not 5. It should not be 5. Because it's nothing to do with any other Double Dragon, it's not even a beat 'em up, and it is a fighting game. So having this be a fighting game with Double Dragon 5, number 5 on it, is wild. And if you look at the Double Dragon games that came out, this fucking guy, if you look at the Double Dragon games that came out before, there we go. Just gotta jump kick him to death. You take a look at the Double Dragon games that came out before this, or after this I should say, it was this, Battletoads Double Dragon, and Double Dragon 5. So if you want, you could probably say, nah man, Battletoads Double Dragon is actually Double Dragon 4. You know, you can make that because who cares at this point? There's just so many things going on with Double Dragon at this time. There's so many different games. There is Double Dragon, the fighting game that's not Double Dragon 5, that was on the Neo Geo, on Neo Geo hardware. And that is kind of, sort of based on the movie. Like, Robert Patrick's bad guy character is a playable character in that game because it's based on the fucking Double Dragon movie. And that's just called Double Dragon. Like, there's so much going on here, man. And we'll talk more about the other Double Dragon 4 when we get to it, which will be the next game we play. But yeah, Technos lost complete ownership of their game. They lost, I think the company had closed down not too much long after. Oh, come on! Ugh, I hate that they can just punch you out of the air. Because the game is tough, man. I mean, it can be. It has its moments. I think this game, if you look at like other beat 'em ups, it's not the toughest game. It just sometimes, and this is a problem I think in a lot of Double Dragons, you can do everything right and the game is still gonna say, yeah, but it doesn't matter. You're still getting punched in the head. But, there we go. Get out of here, Jeff. No, block that, bitch. With Technos, and especially a lot of people who had worked on Double Dragon, because song is really good, what Double Dragon kind of spun off of was the Kunio-kun series of games, and there's a ton of them. So you have, oh, we got out of my, oh, Jeff, get out of here. There we go, and you too, Roper. I was like, there we go. The Kunio-kun game. So that includes a lot of different names at once. Especially take a look at how the games got localized and they kind of all went under some type of different name. A lot of the Kunio-kun games, the more defined art style is the stuff you saw in River City. River City Ransom. That look, you know, that kind of small body, big head, kind of chibi looking thing. That art style was very prominent in almost every Kunio-kun game. So we're talking, again, going by the North American localization, we got River City Ransom, Super Dodgeball, Nintendo World Cup, you know, the sports games, Clash at Demon Head, Crash and the Boys. All of that is based on a Kunio-kun. There's also Renegade. There's Renegade, Target Renegade, Renegade 3, which were sometimes these were games that were done by Ocean as well for the European computers, but are still considered Renegade games. So like Target Renegade has music by Tim Follin, and it kind of has the look of Double Dragon 1. It's really interesting stuff. And Double Dragon is also a Kunio-kun game. It's also a Renegade game. So Double Dragon came from that. Like, Renegade in the arcades had it where it was directional attacks. So if you were facing forward and hit, like, the left button, it would be a punch. If you were facing forward and hit the back button, it would be like a kick from behind. If you're facing the right side and hit the left button, it's now an attack from behind. So it's like, alright, I'm looking this way, so this button will be punch, this button will be kick. But if I go this way, this button is now punch, this button is now kick. It all was determining on where you were focusing. If you're looking to the left or to the right, your buttons would move location. And, or your attacks would change. And Double Dragon 2 does that as well, because it is based off of concepts that were in a previous Kunio-kun game, that being Renegade. So when Double Dragon really started to explode based off of that franchise, Double Dragon really started to become its own unique thing. Fuck your grenade. Get out of here, Roper. You are so lucky you didn't get blown straight to hell there. So really interesting, if you take a look at Double Dragon 1 on the arcades, that is, only 4 levels. You have a very specific set of levels. You're on the streets, and then you're in like a warehouse, then you're in a forest, and then you're in a castle, and then you're going to fight Machine Gun Willie at the end of the game. And Machine Gun Willie and his group, they kidnap Marion at the beginning of the game. They kidnap her, the famous Marion getting punched in the gut and then getting dragged away, and then, the brothers come out of the garage, and, now it's time to fight. And that was Double Dragon 1. There was talk... Oh, damn it. So, Double Dragon 2 originally was not going to be Double Dragon 2. It was going to be a revamp of Double Dragon for the arcades. It was just going to be an upgraded version. Okay, good. Oh, goddamn it. I don't want to get hit again. No, get... Fuck your knees. No, Roper. Get out of here. I'm sorry. Okay, I just gotta get rid of Williams and Roper here. Because I'm in there, not in... here we go. Oh, okay, that's 1. There we go. Holy crap. I just needed distance. I just needed distance. There we go. So Double Dragon 2 was actually just a revamped version of Double Dragon 1, where it even has a lot of the similar level structure. You're in, some type of garage setting. You are then seeing Marion, something bad happened to Marion. You then go to a warehouse, some type of forest, and this time it's a farm. And then you're in the castle and you're fighting Machine Gun Willie again. But what makes Double Dragon 2 a little different is that it was hard. It definitely was a tougher game. And I believe the arcade version also had a directional combat like the NES version has. But the subtitle for Double Dragon 2 is The Revenge. And it's called The Revenge because the game starts at Machine Gun Willie just fucking gunning down Marion. Marion fucking dies at the beginning of that game, man. She just dies. And the revenge is you are getting revenge for Marion. And you don't bring her back. She's dead. Like, she straight up fucking dies at that game. So when they called the game The Revenge, it is, a darker Double Dragon 2. And that's what made Double Dragon 3, a very sour game to some people, is that it is a very different game. It also doesn't continue the kind of darker tone that Double Dragon 2 really dug into, especially when it is wearing more of its influences of its sleeve with its Mad Max and Fist of the North Star influences. Oh, I just gotta... Oh, thank God. So this game being the way it is almost feels like a kind of not a return to form that still isn't, super duper on its face dark, like, Marion doesn't fucking die. But it definitely felt like alright, Double Dragon 3 kind of got away from us there because it was not made by Technos. Double Dragon 3 was made by a different team. And it's not a great game. I think Double Dragon 3 is not a good game, especially with its microtransactions. And I mean that literally. That game essentially had microtransactions where at the beginning of each level there was a shop, and you would need to go into the shop to buy health and extra lives and different characters and weapons, and you would have to spend real goddamn money to go and do this. Very weird. I think it's scummy, even in a time where you have something like Gauntlet, which is, you know, warrior needs food and you got to put money in to keep it going. You know, I don't like that either, but in the case of Double Dragon 3, that I really didn't like, because not only does it have the, oh yeah, you need to spend real money to get weapons, and weapons are a defining thing about Double Dragon, they also had it be a 3-player game. And and I want to say that again. Double Dragon became a 3-player game because they introduced a new character named Sunny, who wears yellow. And it never, at the time, was considered to be the third Lee brother, because they didn't call him Sunny Lee. It wasn't until later where they finally gave him the last name of Lee. But that was definitely done to make more money. Hey, you know what's better than 2 players playing at the same time, which is like a really identifiable and groundbreaking thing that we did. We had this 2-player arcade game that everyone can play at the same time. Let's make it 3 players now, because 3 is better than 2, right? Yeah, but it's called the Double Dragon. What are we doing here? And there were also other characters in the game, and that is what like counted as your lives in the NES version of Double Dragon, where you would need to unlock all these other different characters, and that was how you got lives. It wasn't that you had extra lives or they were very hard to come by. You would need to unlock different characters and play as them. So it's the Double Dragon, and you are being asked to play as someone other than Billy and Ginny Lee. Which, like, I think I get it. Like, yeah, you know, variety is the spice of life, and you don't want it to be the same game. But, like, we have defined this game to be the Double Dragon. And there's other Double Dragon games after that then brought in multiple playable characters, and I think that was handled a little better. Like, you know, Double Dragon Gaiden has a ton of playable characters. But, you know, in the case of how Double Dragon 3 handled the situation, it just felt not great. If you're not down with Bimmy and Jimmy, you can go straight to hell. So, Bimmy and Jimmy, yes, Bimmy and Jimmy, the famous typo in the NES version of Double Dragon 3. They actually are villains in a game called Double Dragon Neon, which was handled by WayForward. It was the last Double Dragon mainline game they tackled, but they then later did the River City Girls games, which again, because Double Dragon is based on Kunio-kun, which then makes it based on River City, they are also in that game as well. So WayForward is keeping the Bimmy and Jimmy train alive. But also, real quickly, because it was brought up in chat earlier, you had Kit in chat saying that their first Double Dragon, I think the only Double Dragon, was the Game Boy Double Dragon 2, which is not Double Dragon 2 it's only Double Dragon 2 in name. It's not based on any of the arcade or NES versions of Double Dragon 2. It is instead a Kunio-kun game that was renamed Double Dragon to make it sell better in the States. I think he also said in chat about, oh, is this like a Final Fantasy on the Game Boy situation? Yes, where the Final Fantasy Game Boy games were actually, were they Saga games, I think it was. It was not Final Fantasy, but when they brought it over to America, they called it Final Fantasy instead. That's exactly what it was. But it's still technically a Double Dragon game. It's just, you know, the lineage that it's based on, which is, again, Kunio-kun. So if you see a River City game, you see a Renegade, you see a Double Dragon, that's all in the same boat. But Super, which we're playing right now, is the one that came out after Double Dragon 3, which I did not like the way that game, I think the game looks and plays like garbage. I think the shop in the arcade version where you have to spend real money to get defining features in Double Dragon, I've always hated that. I've never liked it. I think that is an absolutely not exaggeratory thing to say about the microtransaction nature of that game. The NES versions of Double Dragon 1, 2, and 3 are also slightly different games. You know, speaking of, we got music from Double Dragon 1 right now, which is great. The versions of Double Dragon on the NES all play different. Again, Double Dragon 2 in the arcade was not supposed to be a Double Dragon 2. It was just to be a revamped version of Double Dragon 1, but over some time, and they're like, actually, we can turn this into a whole new game. And it's so similar that you can tell that, like, oh yeah, this was definitely not supposed to be an original game, or a sequel, I should say. But over time, just like, you know what, fuck it, this is Double Dragon 2, let's kill Marion. Like, but Double Dragon 3 is just a bad fucking game. So that also carries through in the NES versions, which I think are the more recognizable versions of Double Dragon for a lot of people. So Double Dragon 1 on the NES, which does look very similar, like I mentioned, Target Renegade has a very similar graphic style to Double Dragon 1. What makes the arcade nature of those games different is that they tried making it a little more like, alright, this can't just be just 4 levels, we need to add a little more here. They were starting with more of a Turbo Edition kind of vibe and decided to take the money instead. I think that's... So in case of Double Dragon 2, I don't think it's necessarily that cynical. In the case of Double Dragon 3, it is that cynical. But yes, that's not a bad comparison. That, like, yeah, it's kind of just like a revamped arcade version. Because I think that's something that kind of gets lost at time with the fact that arcades aren't as, you know, mainstream nowadays, is that arcade machines would need to get upgraded. Changes would get added. Mortal Kombat, for example, was a big one where it's like, oh yeah, no, we brought a new board, and now Melina plays different, or something like that. And not even like in it's a Turbo Edition, or like Mortal Kombat 3, and then it's Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, where it's like, there's enough changes here to warrant being its own game. But, shit, Roper's mad. No, got out of here, there we go. But in Double Dragon 1 and 2, yes, it definitely was going to be hey, we're going to upgrade the board, we're going to make some things different. Hey, look, it's the new upgraded version of Double Dragon, but over time and development, they're like, hey, actually, this game's got some shit going on. This might be its own original thing, let's just do that. And in the case of the home version, specifically the NES versions, they really are different games. Not just in terms of sequels, but from the games they're based on. Double Dragon 1 on the NES, in order to combat it not just being a straight arcade port, is they brought in almost like an RPG style thing. There's like a leveling system where you can, we gotta do enough damage to level up Billy, and now he can do a jump kick, because he can't do a jump kick at the beginning of the game. We also need to then level up where you can then do like a ground attack, and when they're on the ground, you can then hit them. So it's like stuff like that, which was not in the arcade version, but is definitely added as a means of, let's make the NES, the home version, not just be a straightforward carbon copy of the arcade. Double Dragon 2, also, as well, before I forget, the Double Dragon on the ARC in the NES brought in 2-player mode, as a battle mode, like a 2-player fighting game. Because Double Dragon in the arcade, one of its most defining features is that it had 2-player co-op, simultaneous co-op. That is not there on the NES version of Double Dragon. If you want to do 2-player, you have to take turns like Mario. So in order to kind of address that, they brought in this fighting game mode where you can play as Billy and Jimmy, and as well as a bunch of other characters, and you have that instead. Shit, I got cornered there. Double Dragon 2 on the NES does not bring in the fighting game mode, but it does bring in proper co-op 2-player, and it also brings in the directional combat from Renegade, where if you're facing forward, your punch button's a punch button, your kick button kicks behind you. If you face the other direction, the location of where you're punching and kicking also changes. That's also there as well. There's also way more levels in the NES version of Double Dragon 2. There's also more story stuff, like actual cutscenes, and it also changes the subtitle meaning. So, like I said, Double Dragon 2, the arcade version, is called The Revenge, because it begins with Machine Gun Willie straight up fucking just killing Marion, and she stays fucking dead. And in the NES version, they changed that where Marion, well, it's not even Machine Gun Willie. He does not return in Double Dragon 2 and NES. It's the Shadow Master. And you can bring her back at the end of the game. There's like a bit of a happy ending there. But, yeah, much different game. Double Dragon 2 NES, or this NES Double Dragons are all different. And Double Dragon 3 also goes with that as well. More story focused. It gets rid of the shop, but it also really increases the difficulty. So, get out of here. This guy blocks everything. Fuck. It really increases difficulty because there are no lives, or very, very, very hard to get lives. So that's where they bring in the, oh yeah, you gotta play with different characters. And it's like, I don't want to play as different characters. I want to play as the Double Dragon. Get out of here. That was also fucking cool that guy did that. So Double Dragon felt like it kind of lost its way a little bit with Double Dragon 3. And when I gotta stop trying to kick this fucking guy. So with Super Double Dragon, it really was kind of being like, all right, we're gonna do this again. We got a lot of the original team back. We're gonna make this to Double Dragon the way it is supposed to be. And unfortunately, that also did not happen. This game had a kind of a long development. There were more ideas, like in the Japanese version, in the manual, it says like, and then Marion became a cop, and now she's also fighting against crime, and all this extra stuff. There was going to be more of a, oh yeah, the final bad guy is actually someone who was in the lives of Billy and Jimmy. That's not really in the game, and it's definitely not in Super. It just is not anywhere in this game because it just lost time, and they kind of had to get this game out the door, which is one of those unfortunate things that kind of happened with a lot of Double Dragon after the fact. But yeah, a lot of crazy stuff went on here, and like I said, also first Double Dragon here by Technos to not get an arcade release. Super went straight to Super Nintendo, and this is a Double Dragon 4. Because of the release of then Trade West, who had the license, giving it out to everybody, and we got Double Dragon 5, which was based on the cartoon, which I remember not being that great, but, you know, I loved it when I was a kid. There was a very weird period there where, like, okay, what is Double Dragon? What defines Double Dragon? Is it a Kunio-kun thing? Is it its own thing? Is it a multiplayer thing? Is it multimedia? Is it what the fuck is Double Dragon? Because now we have this weird-ass movie with Mark Dacascos. It's a cartoon. We're now meant to sell toys. I gotta stop kicking him. I keep falling for it. It's also now a fighting game based on the movie with Robert Patrick. It's a lot of things at once. And this was kind of the last, I think, like, I don't want to say true. That's not fair to other Double Dragons, which I think do great things. But this was the last one that was just like, no, dude, this is a fucking beat 'em up. And we're just trying to be a good fucking Double Dragon here. So with this game not being a success, it then kind of became, alright, kind of everybody's getting their finger in the pie now. You had the Battletoads Double Dragon game. I hate that game. Double Dragon 5. I hate that game. Generally, it's also generally looked at as like one of the worst fighting games of all time. The Neo Geo fighting game is neat. Apparently, I've never played it. I would love to actually get my hands on that game one day. And then you had all the Double Dragons after. Whether they were actually a Double Dragon or just a renamed and possibly reskinned Kunio-kun game like the Game Boy versions. You had a Game Gear Double Dragon, which did not play like Double Dragon, like at fucking all. And, well, I cannot say not at all, but a lot of the similarities are, you know, what makes Double Dragon isn't really there. And in fact played more, god damn it, get my ass kicked, and played, you know, people throw around it plays more like a Streets of Rage and the Streets of Rage arcade game does. It's a really weird game. Get out of here, fuck me. There we go. Okay, now this guy one-on-one. I just gotta remember to stop trying to kick him head on. It just does not work. He blocks my punches. Doesn't block this, though. Doesn't block my back kick. Oh, he does. Never mind. He does block my back kick. Oh, get out of here, man. And then there was a period there where Double Dragon as like a game just went dormant. There really wasn't a lot of Double Dragon, and then it just kinda... Fuck me running, I gotta stop doing that. It went through a bunch of different people at once. Way Forward, I think, was one of the big deal ones because they did Double Dragon Neon, which is a pretty well-liked game in the world of Double Dragon. I think that game is pretty fun. Not my preferred Double Dragon, but definitely a fun one for sure. Got out of my grab, of course he did. Hit him with the uppercut! Oh, boy, howdy, that boss fight stunk. Oh, I got one more, don't I? This is a long level. Oh, no, next is the truck level. This one's cool. Like Way Forward again, did Double Dragon Neon, which was this kinda sorta love letter parody to other Double Dragons, and beat 'em ups and 80s stuff. It's not a bad game, but I think with some people it's a little too self-aware for its own good. I find that game fun. But again, not why I go to Double Dragon. But again, this becomes another take on Double Dragon, this almost comedy parody thing, because it's also what River City Girls became. Also made by Way Forward, also has the Double Dragon not just as characters in the game, but as playable characters, and even Marian's a playable character in the sequel. Where like even the brothers, Billy and Jimmy Lee, are played by the Game Grumps. You know, the popular YouTube channel, comedy YouTube gaming channel. They play Billy and Jimmy in that game because now there's a sense of Double Dragon as a comedy. That's one version. Okay, though that's a version, right? Like, alright, so is this a grounded kind of... Where's that Fist of the North Star version of Double Dragon? Is that even there anymore? Where's the Kunio-kun? Where is this more like, you know, grittier arcade game? It's like, it's gone now. In this version, it's a comedy. It's still great. It's still a great game. Not denying that, but it's like, it's not what Double Dragon was. And that's when we are kind of at right now. There was also another team that did a remake of Double Dragon 2 called Wanderer of the Dragons, and it was for the 360 exclusive. I think it was like an Xbox arcade game, Xbox Live Arcade, and that is, I think, fair to say, the worst Double Dragon game. That game is terrible across the fucking board, man. I forgot about that. That game is awful because it... God. So that game decided, okay, here's how this is gonna work. It's a remake of Double Dragon 2. It looks like garbage. It then also has a, like, stamina meter. So, like, right now what I'm doing, I'm just kind of swinging around and popping dudes in the head. That will get me tired, and then I'll move slower. And it's like, who the fuck puts a stamina meter in a beat 'em up? And not just like, okay, well, that's gonna be the way you want to do it, it's one of the mechanics gotta work with. It's fine, but like the kind of beat 'em up they're making, a stamina meter doesn't work. It's not built around it. It just feels like a hindrance. And it really does make the game feel like you are being punished for playing it. Ah, I'm dead. That fucking knife did so much damage. Because it should, right? Like, knives should fucking hurt. Like, another thing is, oh, we have, like, special abilities and, like, big, like, Street Fighter-style Hadouken moves and whatnot that you can do, and it looks neat, and, like, hey, guess what? You use it once, you get the bad ending. If you use one special move that would make playing this game a little more fun and, you know, stylistically interesting, yeah, you will get the bad ending if you do it even once. Even by accident, whatever, you did one of these special moves, you get the bad ending. And not like, oh, you don't get the secret hidden extra cool ending. No, you get a bad ending. And even if you get the good ending, good, quote unquote, it really doesn't mean anything. It's still a shit game. Like, it's a shit ending. Like, basically nothing gets accomplished. I keep hitting the wrong button. I mean, you can do back kick and I keep hitting it wrong. Shit! Okay. There we go. That game It's worse than Double Dragon 3 in a way because that's my fault. It's worse than Double Dragon 3 because it has the Double Dragon 2 name attached to it, which to a lot of people that is the best. Let me pick this up, please. It is the best Double Dragon. And to have the Double Dragon 2 name associated with such a piece of shit, it's arguably worse, right? Oh man, Double Dragon 2 Wanderer of the Dragons really did break my heart. And I think that game came out after Double Dragon Neon, which was a really liked game, and even some of the original creators of Double Dragon spoke kind of highly of it. So like that game, to be like, oh, we're on like the Double Dragon is back, right? Here's a new Double Dragon game. What the fuck is this? That game just sucked the wind out of the the air out of the room. Shit. Another Double Dragon 1 theme song callback right now, which is great. Not a bad version. I love the slap bass, heavy sound of every song in this fucking game. And then we get to where we're at now, where we have games like Double Dragon Gaiden, which is a much different style of Double Dragon game. Very chibi looking art style, which a lot of people were not super down with. It has roguelike style elements to it. And I'm gonna be upfront. I fucking love Double Dragon Gaiden. I don't get why that game got such grief. I think that game is great. I think that game is genuinely fucking great. I love playing that game. I think that game is fun. All the musical remakes of Double Dragon themes I think are fantastic. Get out of here, Jeff. That game is really great. And I do not agree with the hate that game has gotten. There we fucking go. Oh, that felt good. Get over here, Jeff. Oh. There we fucking go. And now we have Double Dragon 4, also made by Arc System Works, or within production by Arc Systems, because now Arc System Works, the same people behind Guilty Gear, they now publish Double Dragon games. And I need to double check to see if Arc System Works actually actively developed Double Dragon 4 or just published it. I can't remember off the top of my head. Oh boy. Nope. Oh god. Sorry, I'm now like super tense because like someone sneezes on me, I'm gonna lose this life. Okay. And Double Dragon 4, which we're gonna play next after this, is a sequel to the NES versions of Double Dragon, which is wild. Like, and it even uses sprites and music from Double Dragon 2, the NES version. So it is a sequel to the NES only versions of the game. And I'll tell you, a lot of people did not fucking like Double Dragon 4. I remember seeing when Giant Bomb were doing their Game of the Year stuff, and they talked about that game, and it didn't make their like most disappointing list or like worst game thing, but it was talked about, and it's like, man, people are really fucking harsh on this game, and I just don't see it. I think Double Dragon 4 is a lot of fun. But I think that also kind of keeps going back to Double Dragon is trying to constantly redefine itself. Is it a throwback game? Is it a comedy? Is it a little more gritty? Is it stylized? Is it, what is Double Dragon? Because after all these other Double Dragons, the most recent one we have now, coming out in this year, in October actually, is Double Dragon Revive. And already people are not happy with this game. Like, now they're kind of falling into like, hey, maybe it's time to give Double Dragon a rest. It's been going for a long time now. They're not necessarily hitting. And these games are not that well reviewed, liked. I don't know about their sales. And in the case of Double Dragon Revive, the creators of Double Dragon, or some creators of who worked on the original games, are already actively, publicly not fucking happy with the way it looks. Like, not only are they not happy with the way it looks, they are, like, actively calling it out and saying, like, oh, it actually, like, breaks our fucking heart to see this. Like, we have not had any involvement, like, direct involvement in something we had made in a long time. It sucks to see that we lost our game here, and what it has turned into, we're not happy with. It's like, yowzer! Like, that must suck. Like, that is a heartbreaking sentiment to hear, right? Like, yeah, no, we made this shit, we have no more involvement in it, and we don't like the way it looks. Like, shit, that sucks. Like, that's heartbreaking. And I have to imagine also for Arc System Works and the people behind these other Double Dragons, that must break their heart too, to hear like the creators of Double Dragon be like, yeah, we actively don't like what you do. We constantly are, we're still in talks together, we have group chats, and we call you out in our group chats. Like, that's what was discussed, and I forget, I think it was Time Extension posted an article about it saying like, yeah, there's like, no one's happy. It's like, God, that fucking sucks. Especially when you look at what happened at the tail end of Double Dragon, again with like Super and Return, where, you know, this was not the game, not entirely the game they wanted to make, because, you know, had to get the game out the door. And, you know, what happened afterwards is Trade West gave the name to everybody and anyone, and we got a bunch of weird shit. And we still get, admittedly, weird shit that I enjoy, like, you know, Neon and Gaiden and River City Girls. But yeah, like, what is Double Dragon? What is it anymore? And the answer is, I guess, it's just a name, man. And how exciting is that name to you? How exciting is it to hear that Double Dragon music? How exciting is it to see Williams and Roper and Marion and all that, and the Shadow Master and Machine Gun Willie? Like, do you still get an excitement out of seeing these characters in a different light? Because if you do, hell yeah, man, every fucking Double Dragon since has been some type of remake, retelling, redo, whatever. Like, we'll never get a proper Double Dragon 5. And if you look at the creators of Double Dragon, that makes them really fucking upset. And now we have all these different versions of Double Dragon. What next?